right?
So yeah, once again, this is Karan Varani. I'm in charge of the media research at Dara Capital. So we're going to make this session kind of interactive, basically. So how many of you have actually watched OTT content, like regional content on OTT? Can you just raise your hands? So yeah, it's like really, as you can see the numbers, it's really, really low as of now. So that's the topic here. So how regional OTT is going to pick up in a very, very big way right now, because if you saw when OTT emerged in India about 5 years back, it was only English-based content. Then came Hindi, and now there's going to be the next chance of regional OTT scaling up in a very, very big way. So we just got some basic numbers over here on the slides. So if you see OTT, basically OTT is basically any amount of video content which is consumed through the internet. And the market is currently very, very fragmented. So they had about 9 players in 2013 in India-based OTT. Now there are about 34 plus players. You do expect consolidation to kick in the market, but that's going to take some more amount of time. So if you see in terms of who are these players in the OTT platforms today, so you have got global giants like Netflix and Amazon, which are present across the world. You have got the Indian broadcasters, which is Zee, Sony, Colors, which is what Vogue, and Hotstar, which is part of Star Group, which is there. There are also other platforms like the telco-based platforms like Airtel, Vodafone, Play, and Jio. Then you have other platforms like Alt Balaji, YouTube, and all those kind of things, which are like an aggregate kind of platform. So it's a very, very fragmented market right now, and basically the consumption is very much high today for OTT. That's why the need for these kind of platforms are there in the market today. So just look at the time spent as to what exactly is happening in the OTT market now. So the average time spent for TV is around about 4 hours, 3.5 hours a day for a pan-India basis. But in terms of South India, the time spent is around 4 hours. So South India consumes a lot of TV, and basically we might expect similar traction in OTT as well. So there's a lot of question being raised in the market today that is OTT eating up the time spent on TV? The answer for that is basically no. It's an additional time which is being spent on TV or on OTT by the consumers. Because OTT is something which is being consumed on the go, where you are basically traveling in traffic or you're commuting to work, coming back home. So that's where OTT is basically being consumed, and so it's not actually eating away the time spent on TV. So in fact, you see in terms of numbers, it's around 8.5 hours of video content which is being consumed on digital, which is very, very low as compared to TV, which is still about 24 hours for the entire week. In terms of the time spent, so smartphone penetration in India is very, very high. So 30% of your phone usage is based for entertainment and OTT consumption of basically news and sports genres, which are the key genres which are consumed on digital platforms today. So here are basically the various OTTs. As I told you, there are telco-based OTTs, there are global OTTs, there are also the broadcast-based OTTs which are there. So in terms of scalability factor, you see all these OTTs are based on advertising-based model or the subscription-based model. Largely 80% of the market in India is based on advertising-based model because people are not ready to pay for content. So it's going to take time for people to get habituated to pay for content, and maybe that's the reason for something that's happening. So the biggest players here are basically your Amazon Prime, your Hotstar, MX Player, YouTube. In fact, YouTube was one of the first ones to actually drive the consumption of video on the internet. So they have the first mover advantage over here. The second in line players are basically your Netflix, your ZEE5, your Voot, Sony Live. Now these are the emerging players in the market, and the reason for them to have such a high subscriber base is because of telco partnerships which they've got. So ZEE5 tied up with Airtel, Vodafone, so you get free access to these OTTs. So telco-based partnership is a very important thing to drive scalability in the OTTs. And the third, the niche audience OTTs are basically your Sun Next, Alt Balaji, Eros Now, which has got a lesser number of subscribers relative to each other. Because the kind of content in that OTTs is very niche in nature, basically. So OTT today basically substantial growth, and thanks to the inorganic initiatives, as I told you, the OTTs are coming together. There is consolidation. There's also telco-based partnership which is driving consumption in the OTT. If you see the market dynamics even today, so currently around 75% of the consumption of OTT is by the audience which is in the age range of 15 to 30 years of age. So you really need to get hard-hitting content, for this kind of audience, and that's the reason why the OTT is making big budget kind of series like Sacred Games, which is really played a very big role in this kind of a thing. So this is just the start; it's just the beginning. I think this is going to scale up to a next level further because this youth age is basically using OTT a lot right now in the market.
Thank you, Karan. One point you missed out is one thing that came out of this survey we did in 3 cities is that women consume more of the OTT in terms of TV repeat shows, whereas men consume more of OTT original numbers. Right? So I have 3 quick questions for the panel. The first one is each one of you. Probably we can start with Puran. Who's watching OTT in terms of what's your understanding in terms of age, gender, town class?
Eventually, if you take a look at the patterns that you've just seen, take a look at the adoption in other countries, you see some typical patterns. It depends on a couple of things. Firstly is the adoption of technology. So how soon will the amount of people who can access OTT are the same as they access television? Once that happens, the concept of watching something when you want to watch it is obviously a service people can adopt it. The second is the availability of content. So at the moment, what we've seen in markets where OTT is fairly new, and it is one of those markets, even though the numbers are huge, but you get a huge rise in sports, because that's easily available. And of course, you get news. And news is very relevant because for the first time, people get to hear their local news in their local language. And that gets a quick boom in audiences. But overall, if you look at the United States, you look at Germany, look at the UK, China, that tipping point where you talk about the younger generation adopting it first, the heaviest users, after a period of 7 or 8 years, once the technology is understood, tends to be over 50s. They're the ones that spend a huge amount of time. And then the content starts to match what those guys need. So brands, content makers, filmmakers, program makers, they take a look at the adoption of the technology. Those are the medias that will immediately benefit. But to a human being, OTT is a B2B statement. It's how we separate it. To a consumer, to a human being, it's the same stuff that I can watch when I want to watch it. That's the core difference. And how you format your shows will depend on how successful you are. There's the 15-second, there's the 2-minute, there's the 10-minute, there's the 1 hour. So when you reformat to that, that's how you create success. Initially, you might think they're sitting side by side. No. One's going to get eaten up unless it adapts to how people are going to consume it eventually on OTT.
Okay. Second.
It's a very great scenario for OTT platforms.
Sorry, very great.
So it's a great scenario for OTT platforms at the point of in terms of what the kind of numbers that shows.
Yeah.
Right now, the OTT platform revenue is the entire revenue of OTT platforms revenue is 0.5 billion, which is considered to grow to 5 billion by 2023. See, the entire OTT platform is divided into 3 segments. Basically. One is SOD, then AOD, and then TOD. SOD is basically subscription video on demand. Then AOD is an advertiser's video on demand. Then TOD is transactions video on demand. At this point of stage, 82% of the revenue is coming from advertiser video on demand, which is going to drastically go down by 43% by 2023. And subscription and transaction will go up by 32% by 2023. So people who are thinking that they will make revenue through advertising on these platforms, I think the PwC report and the KPMG report clearly states that it is very difficult for people to make the kind of revenues that they are planning to make with the kind of advertisement kind of things that.
Let me restate the question. We'll come to that. My question was, in your understanding, who is consuming OTT? Yeah, we'll come to that.
Related to what the message I told.
Yeah.
So in India, right now at this point of view, the top 5 metros contributes to 73% of the OTT platform audience, which is a very meager segment. When by 2023, the whole ballgame is shifting to bigger numbers because of the affluent category that is going up and the data of 3G, 5G which is going to come up. And adaptation of basically demographic regional content which is going to help in a big way, where right now 16 to 24 age group is what majorly into this, out of which salaried people are the one who spends more time, followed by students, then followed by business owners, and then last by women. So I feel that it's a more male brands which are skewed towards male advertising is where they look at OTT platforms, and most of the content that was going to still bring the things in next 2023 should be the male audience that are coming to OTT.
That's right. But our survey said one third of the consumers are still women. So you're right. It's male skewed. There is enough women consuming. Prasad, what's your take, Prasad, on this?
Maybe not too much of stats because we've been very good at stats. I'll bring it home in terms of what it is in real life. About a couple of weeks back, when I went back home, I was greeted by my daughter who vociferously declared that we are doing away with dance television and we're getting fast. So I was surprised. I'm supposed to be a media expert and supposed to know about what's happening, and I never thought of taking this step. So then I said, okay, Fire Stick may work for you, but what about grandma? It's going to be really tough for her to consume content on Fire Stick. It should be comfortable. Then to my surprise, I figured out that the decision has been made by the first generation and the third generation. Both the grandma and the grandfather got together and decided to go with Fire Stick and make sure that it Fire Stick. So if you roll back and think about this particular phenomenon, the entire thing is happening because of the last mile transformation. All this while we have to depend on cable for delivering content to our screens. Now today we have Wi-Fi, internet, and we just need bandwidth for content to be delivered to our home screens. It can be a big screen or the mobile screen. So now that there has been a huge transformation in the last mile delivery system, the content is getting consumed.
And the other one is to include
Multi-screen television shows.
a quick point.
Recommendation for most the exact of the word on Facebook.
It's very simple for concept. Storytelling, how you deal with brands, it's been a bit fun. So, I don't know, they were, sure. Do you know what I mean? 2 or 3 different.
I operated radio about 3 years back. We believe in the benefit with cricketing.
Or we
So many platforms are, it's just that, so it has to be.
absolutely no, you are
Casualty. Okay, taking the content of other things to do.
say zoomed on or prominently large metro television screen or we had history probably will